Good afternoon. I'm NowThis senior politics producer Alan Piper, and this is our live fact check of White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, President Trump's fourth press secretary in under 4 years. This is her third ever official briefing, and I'd like to introduce her with this video produced by NowThis producer Michael Lester.
We will not see diseases like the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here. And isn't that refreshing when contrasting it with the awful presidency of President Obama? This is a president that constantly has things made up about him. The president is lied about constantly. This is why Harvard, by the way, says 90% of the news coverage of the president is negative. Not my words, Harvard's
No, that's
words.
not what Harvard said. Harvard said 90% of the coverage is negative. They didn't say why. The why is his mouth and his actions.
American people to trust or believe what is said here or what is said by the president.
There's no denying that CNN, that the Washington Post, that the New York Times have all displayed malicious intent. They knowingly publish false information.
This is no one's fault but the deranged maniac that is sending those pipe bombs.
But CNN is culpable. Let me just add this.
CNN is culpable? You want to be on the record saying that a pipe bomb showed up in CNN?
No, not culpable for the pipe bomb. Culpable for the rhetoric that we are seeing back and forth. I don't think he was condoning sexual assault. He said he starts to kiss a woman and then they let him do X, Y, or Z. That implies consent, first of all. I don't think he was advocating sexual assault. You might think he's gone around assaulting women. I don't think that's the case. You had President Obama, who after I believe it was the beheading of Daniel Pearl, spoke to how upset he was about that, then rushed off to a golf game. President Trump rescinded the Obama guidelines on transgender, and let's be very clear why he did that. President Obama acted lawlessly. I think in this case, this accusation is far more accurate than Donald Trump being an ISIS propaganda.
ISIS.
The media's best hope is for Donald Trump to suspend his rallies. They've been wanting him to stop this. They know it's his avenue to speak directly to the American people. So we're going to follow the president's lead. We're not going to cave to the media. The president is the best authority on this issue.
Kayleigh, I don't know you. Seriously, do you have any integrity at all? I am keeping it professional. She's the one lying.
And that is Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, and we will now bring you the press conference in full. We are broadcasting from our own homes. Here is Kayleigh McEnany.
Good afternoon. Today marks the 75th anniversary of VE Day, a triumphant milestone in our nation's history and indeed in world history. 75 years ago today, our brave American forces defeated fascism in Europe, and through the selfless devotion of thousands of patriots, they saved the world. Over 180,000 Americans gave their lives in the European theater during World War II. And I want to take just a moment to honor their service and their sacrifice. Thank you to all of our veterans. You are truly, truly our heroes. Now, as I move to my next subject, I want to begin by saying this. Look, our rank and file men and women at the FBI are heroes in their own right. They protect this country from domestic crime, and we thank them for their service. They work hard, and once again, we owe them a debt of gratitude. But that is separate and apart from what I'm about to address right now. The FBI exists to investigate crimes. But in the case of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, it appears that they might have existed to manufacture one.
Okay, already, Kayleigh McEnany, who promised in her first briefing last week, "I will never lie to you," is straying from the truth when she gets to Michael Flynn, suggesting that his crimes did not exist. He, in fact, pleaded guilty twice to lying to the FBI about his involvements with Russia.
Behind the FBI's investigation of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. The very day that then FBI Director Jim Comey sent agents to the White House to interview Flynn, the FBI discussed what their intent was beforehand. This is what they said. What is our goal? Truth, admission, or to get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired? These notes, in addition to other evidence, raise serious questions about the handling of the
Okay, for anyone who's ever watched an episode of Law and Order, if investigators believe that someone has committed a crime, it is logical to try to catch that person in a lie about the crime.
Here to paint a target on the back of General Michael Flynn, Kimberly Strassel of the Wall Street Journal laid out point by point the very concerning aspects of this case, and I'm going to reiterate them as outlined in her column over the weekend. In December 2016, Flynn spoke as the incoming national security advisor to the Russian ambassador. This call, as is customary, was recorded by the United States government. They record calls with foreigners. But in a highly irregular move, the intelligence community under the Obama administration unmasked the identity of Michael Flynn, a United States citizen who is entitled to Fourth Amendment rights and to due process. But Lieutenant General Michael Flynn received none of that. The intelligence community was hunting for evidence against General Flynn, evidence they did not find. We learned from newly released transcripts that
actually, evidence was found against Michael Flynn, and he did, in fact, plead guilty to lying about his contacts with Russia. He also was found to be acting as an unregistered foreign agent. Judge Emmett Sullivan, at one of his trial appearances, said to Michael Flynn, quote, "Arguably, you sold your country out."
Conclusion, the FBI came up with a new absurd theory that Flynn might have violated the Logan Act, a statute from 1799 that in its 200 years of existence had never been used to convict an American citizen, but it was resurrected in the case of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn didn't violate the Logan Act. Even the FBI did not think that General Flynn's telephone call provided the predicate for a criminal investigation. In fact, in January of 2017, an internal FBI document concluded that Flynn was, quote, no longer a valid, viable candidate for investigation. Disgraced FBI agent and noted Trump hater Peter Strzok disagreed, texting this, "Hey, if you haven't closed that Flynn case yet, don't do so yet," end quote. So the Flynn case remained active. This was a good thing for Peter Strzok, but it was a bad thing for justice. It was a bad thing for the rule of law. According to yesterday's motion to dismiss the case against Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, it said this, Mr. Strzok immediately relayed the, quote, serendipitously good news to Lisa Page, special counsel at the FBI, remarking, quote, our utter incompetence actually helps us. That's right, their utter incompetence to close the case against Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was something to be serendipitously celebrated. The scheme to manufacture a case...
Now, I want to highlight again. So they repeatedly, the Trump administration suggests that the fact that apparently it is Michael Strzok, an FBI agent, was not a fan of Donald Trump. Now, FBI agents are people. they will have their opinions about political figures. The important thing is that those opinions don't influence their investigations. And an internal Justice Department watchdog found that indeed the Russia probe was justified, and found that there was in no way was bias against Donald Trump, candidate Donald Trump. In no way was bias against Donald Trump a factor in the results or the formation of the investigation.
Acting Attorney General Sally Yates, no fan of President Trump, said she was flabbergasted, she was dumbfounded by the decision to not inform DOJ officials who, quote, hit the roof. This is all outlined in a legal document that you can find. Additionally, when the FBI arrived at the White House, they did not even warn lawyer Liz Flynn about the consequences for providing an inaccurate response. The interrogation of Michael Flynn was not an inquiry. Make no mistake, it was a trap.
I also want to highlight that General Michael Flynn was a career intelligence officer. He was not some naive person coerced into making a guilty plea without understanding the facts of the case or his rights. It is interesting, coming from an administration that has a very tough on crime, Blue Lives Matter attitude to many aspects of justice, that this administration, this president has called the FBI scum, and has acted as if poor Michael Flynn couldn't have known the situation that he was getting himself into when he admitted to lying.
Forever changed. He had to sell his home. He faced financial ruin. His family was even threatened with prosecution. But despite all of that, here's what Michael Flynn put out yesterday in his first reaction.
And then Press Secretary McEnany is highlighting the fact that Michael Flynn has had adverse repercussions financially, socially, to his family from having pled guilty to a federal crime. I would like to highlight that everyone who is found guilty or pleads guilty suffers repercussion as a result of that. This is not a unique situation for Michael Flynn.
He was so gravely wronged to say this: I still believe in this country, I still believe in America, I still believe in the principles that make this country the greatest on earth. And in the words of renowned political philosopher Baron de Montesquieu, there is no greater tyranny than that which is perpetrated under the shield of law and in the name of justice. I hope the media will take these questions very seriously, will report the facts. There was heavy interest in the first iteration of Flynn News from many years ago that got 4 times the coverage that the exoneration of Michael Flynn.
Okay, Michael Flynn has not been exonerated. That is a false statement. He has pleaded guilty to crimes. He has pleaded guilty to crimes. The investigation found that he committed the crimes, and he pleaded guilty. The fact that Attorney General Barr is dropping the charges so that he will not face the consequences for the crimes that he has pleaded guilty to does not reverse the fact that he has admitted to committing them.
Yeah, this president is the jobs president. This president got us to a place where we had the lowest employment rate in the history of this country, historic lows for Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, the disabled, veterans. As the president has noted, and I think this is right, we had to put a stop to the economy. It was a pause. This wasn't some, economic catastrophe that organically happened. It was decided upon by the President of the United States to stop the United States.
And now, of course, the administration likes to claim credit for job creation. The administration has benefited from the tail end of the Obama recovery. There were more jobs created in the last 3 years of President Obama than under the first 3 years of President Trump.
He did. And I can tell you this, the president that got us to the hottest economy in modern history, he's done it once, and he can...
And it was not the hottest economy in modern history. The economy has been stronger at other times on many metrics.
Nancy Pelosi was here, but thus far what we've done is the PPP, of course, Paycheck Protection Program, that has really kept a lot of employees on the payroll. 60 million employees, roughly half of the workforce in the private sector in this country have been kept on payroll thanks to that measure. But going forward, principles like deregulation, principles like lowering taxes, the president has mentioned a payroll tax pause, which would be a great thing for the American people. There are a lot of proposals.
This payroll tax pause is very odd because over 30 million Americans are not on a payroll right now. A payroll tax pause is a tax cut for people who have jobs. It does not help people who don't have jobs.
What's the plan?
I can tell you there's a lot of pent-up demand in this country. There's a lot of people who do want to go out to restaurants, who do want to go out to movies, who do want to go back to their jobs. We see it and we hear about it every day. I don't think that that's a problem. I think people can trust that we have a president who wants to reopen and reopen safely. These are data-driven guidelines to reopening. The president has those in place, so there's no reason to be concerned because we have a president who always looks at the data, as Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx have repeatedly noted. Seek?
Kayleigh, there was a second confirmed case of COVID-19 here at the White House today, apparently a member of the vice president's staff. That's 2 in 2 days in a building where people are being tested now, including the president and vice president. Every day they've had their temperature checked for months here. Why should the average American whose workplace doesn't have access to these rapid tests feel comfortable going to work if the White House isn't even safe for people?
Well, look, this individual, there is a member of the vice president's team who is positive for coronavirus. We have put in place the guidelines that our experts have put forward to keep this building safe, which means contact tracing, all of the recommended guidelines we have for businesses that have essential workers, we're now putting in place here in the White House. So as America reopens safely, the White House is continuing to operate safely.
So this is an odd statement. We are now seeing that the members of press in the briefing room are wearing masks. That is encouraging. That is a new development. But the administration itself has not been wearing masks. President Trump has said that he would not wear a mask. Vice President Pence very famously went to a mask production plant without wearing a mask. And now we know that President Trump's, one of his personal valets has been tested positive for the coronavirus. It is alarming how little precaution this White House has taken to protect the President of the United States.
I'll tell you that the President always puts the safety of our veterans first and of the American people first.
Well, how much exposure has he had to his valet? Can you give us a sense of...
I can just tell you that we've taken every single precaution to protect the president. The same guidelines that our experts have put in place. We clean the facility. We social distance. We keep...
They do not social distance. We routinely see the President of the United States standing within a few feet of other people, including the Vice President of the United States. They do not take every precaution because he and his team do not wear masks.
Which government agency is in charge of distributing that drug, and is the White House satisfied with how that drug is being distributed around the country?
Yeah, I actually just spoke with Dr. Birx about this. She is going to be working and consulting as to where this drug should go. And
we are aware that the sound is out of sync, but the sound and the picture are both there, so thank you for your patience in dealing with those. As I've mentioned before, we are each broadcasting, working from our respective homes, and the NowThis team does not have our full physical studio to avail ourselves of.
It's promising, and we want to get it to the American people and to the areas that need it most.
Ganesh? Hi, thanks so much and congratulations on the new gig. It's my first time seeing you at the podium. And, I have 2 quick questions. The first one's about what's the possibility of the federal government getting involved in the Ahmaud Arbery case, given that Georgia doesn't have any hate crime laws? If it's proven that these men chased and killed Ahmaud Arbery because he was an African American and they racially profiled him, would the Justice Department consider getting involved?
Look, first I want to say that my heart goes out to the family of Ahmaud. I can't imagine what they're going through right now. My heart breaks for this family. I know the president's heart breaks. I've spoken to him about that. And I can tell you, we will follow the facts right now. As you know, it's in the court in Georgia. It's a state matter, but absolutely we will be following every detail. And I'd refer you to DOJ, but as the facts merit, I'm certain that they'll be following those facts. And you had a second question?
The second question I have is, in 2015, shortly after the president said that some Mexican immigrants were rapists and criminals, you said that language was racist and hateful. Do you still believe that today?
Well, I'm actually glad you asked that, because for about the first 4 weeks of the election, I was watching CNN and I was naively believing some of the headlines that I saw on CNN. And
headlines, that's fine. I just want to know if you also personally still believe that.
I'm actually not going to read the headlines. So I very quickly came around and supported the president. In fact, CNN hired me. I was on many 8-on-1 panels where I proudly supported this president, who I believe is one of the best presidents, if not the best president this country will ever have. But I would encourage the individual who did that analysis of my past, rather than focusing on me, he really should be focused on some of the very guests CNN chose to have on their network. He should be focused on, over here, Jim Clapper, who said, 10 days before he privately told investigators there was no evidence of collusion, that Watergate pales in comparison to the Russia probe. I'd encourage them to look at Samantha Powers, who's privately saying, I'm not in possession of any evidence of collusion. Ambassador Rice, I don't recall intelligence or evidence of any collusion. Former Attorney General Loretta Lynch, I do not recall that being briefed to me. And for 3 years, 2 years, probably more than that, CNN ran with the collusion narrative. And if the American people are watching right now, they're probably very confused as to some of the quotes I read, because those individuals were saying much different things publicly than they were saying privately. And I'm very grateful that those transcripts were released yesterday. And perhaps the K-File should do an analysis of that. Yes, Ebony?
Are you walking back those comments today at all? Or do you stand by those comments that you made?
I support this president. There is no questioning that. So honored to work for him. And Ebony, next question.
Thank you. On the mic.
So I just want to highlight that again, President Trump has tried to make the Russia investigation all about this phrase of no collusion. Collusion is not actually a legal term. The Mueller report specifically said that it did not address the question of collusion. What it addressed was the fact that it confirmed definitively that Russia was actively involved, Russian intelligence was actively involved in interfering in the U.S. election, and that as a candidate, Donald Trump was aware of Russia's involvement and actively sought out their aid. The fact that the Mueller report found essentially that the fact that a criminal conspiracy could not be proven to have been committed appears largely to have been because of the issues of competence in the campaign's ability to coordinate its actions with the Russian actors that they were attempting to conspire with.
Having those discussions, we know the Senate is here. I think it's important for us to move and look at a phase 4. The president thinks so too. So those negotiations will happen, but a big part of that is, we need the House. We need Nancy Pelosi to come back from California and get to Washington, D.C. and to work for the American people. Yep.
Thank you, and congratulations on your new role.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Following up on Jim's questions about getting the economy started again, does the president see the CDC guidelines as an obstacle to getting the country back up and running again? And if it does not see the CDC guidelines as an obstacle, why not release those guidelines to the public and also follow them as we move forward?
So I assume you're talking about the guidelines that were widely reported about yesterday about daycares. Yes. So I would ask you, what's the definition of CDC guidelines? Is it something that the CDC director has actually seen? I would endeavor to say yes. Is it something that a rogue CDC employee leaks to you guys? No, those aren't CDC guidelines. Those are guidelines in draft form that a rogue employee has given you for whatever personal reason they've decided to do that. Those guidelines are in the editing process. We want the American people to get as much information as they can possibly have at this time. That's why we have the phased reopening guidelines, the data-driven guidelines. Those CDC guidelines are going through an editing process, and when we have those, you guys will be the first to know. Are we on time, Melissa?
We are. I said we're out.
Okay, what's our exact?
2 to 1. 2 minutes to 1.
Oh, 2 minutes to 1. I'm sorry to cut this short, but as you know, you guys were supposed to be 3 minutes ago with the President of the United States. So I will leave you guys with that. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
The first part of this
And
briefing
thanks so
talking
much,
about
everyone.
Mike Flynn, when both the
Justice
president and
matters.
vice president were exposed to coronavirus and we had historic unemployment.
All right, and there goes Kayleigh McEnany. She is not opting to answer those last questions. Now, I do want to run through a couple of things that she just said. So she devoted a lot of time to Michael Flynn on this. So what has happened is that we know that Michael Flynn committed crimes. That's not a subjective opinion. He confessed to committing crimes. He pleaded guilty to lying to FBI agents about his conversations with a Russian diplomat. Now, Judge Emmett Sullivan, in response to those claims, said in 2018, quote, "Arguably, you sold your country out." We also know that he was acting as an unregistered foreign agent, acting on behalf of the Turkish government. That's not an illegal thing for him to do if he informs the U.S. that he is acting on behalf of a foreign government. It is certainly unusual for a member of an administration or of a campaign to be acting on behalf of a foreign government. That would normally seem to present a conflict of interest, but it is not legal to do so secretly without notifying. Now, this idea that these new notes that were released suggest that there was a trap for him. It was a very simple thing of what you might see out of a Law and Order episode. FBI investigators predicted that he was going to lie about his conversations with Russians, and were discussing what to do if and when he lied. They did not coerce him into anything. They did not get him to fabricate a lie. They asked him about a subject that they believed he would lie about, and he confirmed their expectations by lying. At the time, President Trump tweeted, quote, "I had to fire General Flynn because he lied to the Vice President and the FBI." And now there are also some very strange actions that Michael Flynn took on behalf of Turkey. It was revealed in 2017 that an investigation was ongoing into Michael Flynn's alleged role in a plan to forcibly remove a Muslim cleric living in the U.S. and deliver him to Turkey in return for millions of dollars, according to people familiar with the investigation. That is what, in plain English, would be known as kidnapping. He was involved in a plot to kidnap a Muslim cleric and send him to Turkey in exchange for millions of dollars. This is the person that President Trump is highlighting as a great individual that Trump supporters have been comparing to Nelson Mandela. So that is, those are just some of the facts around Michael Flynn. I also want to highlight facts around the Mueller investigation. It led to 50 indictments, convictions, and guilty pleas. It has been repeatedly mischaracterized as exonerating President Trump. It very specifically said, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. What the Mueller report did show definitively was that Russian intelligence interfered in the U.S. election with the goal of helping elect Donald Trump. This has been confirmed by the Mueller report, by the unanimous opinion of the intelligence community, and most recently by the Republican-controlled Senate Intelligence Committee. And the Mueller report found furthermore that he wasn't a president at the time, candidate Donald Trump's campaign was aware of Russia's efforts, communicated with Russia about these efforts, and actively welcomed the aid of a hostile foreign power to interfere in a U.S. election. The Mueller report also found 10 potential instances of obstruction of justice. Now, Attorney General Barr has mischaracterized the Mueller report to the extent that Robert Mueller ended up making public statements saying that the statements that Attorney General Barr, whom President Trump handpicked after previously firing people who were in his way, his handpicked Attorney General, William Barr, has been actively using, to all appearances, the power of the Justice Department to act personally on the behalf of President Trump. And this dropping of charges appears to be something that is only happening in an effort to get a Trump crony out of facing the consequences of a crime that he has admitted committing. So those are the main takeaways from Kayleigh McEnany's press briefing today. President Trump is doing another event now, which we hope to have tape of later, and if we do, we will give you a fact check of that as well. I want to thank you for tuning in. My name is Alan Piper. If you care to follow me on Twitter, I am apiper13. Now, I have often used these briefings to run through the timeline of President Trump's reaction to the coronavirus. A lot of people have mentioned that that this has been helpful, so we've actually released a standalone video of that timeline, and it is in the comments. And so I want to thank everyone involved today. All of our NowThis staff is working from home. I want to particularly thank Brandon Caruso, Maddie Green, Zara Heder, Ian McKenna, and Versha Sharma. Now, I think I may speak to you again later today, but in case I do not, I want to highlight that with Mother's Day coming up on Sunday, the best gift you can give your mother is not to go visit her. Please, if you are quarantined at home with your mother, great. Celebrate the day with her. If you are not at home with your mother, if that's not where you're living, do not try to go to your mother. Phone your mother. FaceTime your mother. Whatever other ways there are. Text your mother. Email your mother. Reach out to your mother through all of the avenues that technology allows. Try to send psychic messages to your mother. But do not go visit your mother. That is not a good Mother's Day gift. Just because you might feel fine does not mean that you are not currently infected with the coronavirus. We know that many, many people who carry this potentially deadly virus do not present symptoms. Sometimes not at all, sometimes just not for quite a while. Your mother does not want coronavirus for Mother's Day. It's not a good gift. Don't go visit her, but call her. Don't forget to call her. So that's what I have to say for now. I may see you later today. If we have a fact check of President Trump's event, I expect I will also stream the applause from New York for our brave medical and essential workers. So thank you very much. Please stay safe. Please call your mother and do not visit her.